Going long. There we go. Going live there. All right, we are live on something is live. Let's see. Is that microphone? Microphone is not reading anything. There we go. Yes, now we're better. Hello, everybody. Let's put this down. Tom Caltabiano here. Everybody loves Raymond 360. Hoping we go live on a whole bunch of different platforms now, and hoping that our friend Wolfgang Track can join. Hello, Karen. Hello, Bob. You're watching on Facebook. That's good. I'm seeing those messages. Now, Instagram. Hopefully, Instagram as well. Let's click on this little bad boy over here. Got a lot going on today, folks. Do that. Oh, try not to shake the camera. And then I'm doing that. Okay. Hello. Hello from Southeast Kansas. Hello, Annabelle. You asked a very good question, Annabelle, and I'm trying to remember what it was. What was it? Oh boy, I remember. Oh, I can't wait to write that answer. So, Tom Caldabiano here, Everill's Raymond 360 Live. We do this every Sunday, 2 p.m. I'm going live through something called StreamYard, which means it's able to go out to our YouTube channel, our Instagram channel, and hopefully our Facebook channel. We're waiting for Wolfgang Track, but we are patiently waiting because it has been such a long time since we brought up the subject of stand-ins, which seems to confuse people greatly. So stand-in, we'll have Wolfgang when he joins get into depth, but I think a lot of people don't know what that is. And rightfully so. Oh, hold on. Okay. I had to yell at one of my devices. I didn't want to trigger everyone else's devices. Okay. So I posted, let me see if I can pull those photos up. Let me plug this in so my phone doesn't go bad. Yes, Annabelle, if you remember the question, let's see. The question, okay, hold on. Okay. Do this. So let me just do this. Let me go to Instagram. What I'm doing is I'm looking on my phone to go back to this. Okay, so here we go. There are the stand-ins for the cast for the most part. Okay, when I say for the most part, Wolfgang and Sarah, who are in the center of the frame, I believe and Joe Durenberg actually were there from the beginning to the very, very end. And Mike Duddy came in. He started working on the show in season 2. He's in the blue shirt. And I don't know that he was a stand-in until much later when he started working with Peter Boyle. Here, I'm trying to get rid of the reflection. Then Maya is the stand-in for, you guessed it, Doris Roberts, which only makes sense. So, all right, let me see here. Let me check on one of my other devices to see if I have an email from our friend Wolfie. So one of the things about Wolfgang is he is currently in Austria. So let's try here and here. Okay. And let me do this. Let me just send this invite, copy this, and let's see this. I'm going to send this here, sending this here. Okay. So that maybe you can resend that to Wolfgang. Okay. So, this is awesome. Yes. Hello, Karen Jack. Okay. Now let me get back to StreamYard. Here we go. Okay. Get rid of that. So I just went through the stand-in. So the way that the stand-ins work. Oh, I heard a noise. There. Oh, Wolfgang.
Hi, Tom.
Wow. Let's see if everyone can hear. Let me hear a thumbs up from the people in my room if they can hear you. Yeah. Wolfie, it's very good to see you.
It's very good to see you too. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's nighttime there, right?
Yes, 11 o'clock.
Okay. And Wolfgang, why are you in Austria?
I came to Austria about 3 years ago on a vacation, and my dad wasn't doing very well health-wise, so I decided to stay. And then my dad passed away a couple of years ago, so I decided to stay and take care of my mom so she's not alone. So now I'm back in Vienna.
Okay. Sorry to hear about your father. I mean, I knew about it, but I don't want to seem like a cold-hearted, terrible person. So, and your father, we'll get into your history. We'll get into a whole bunch of different details, but I'm just going to right off the bat say that of all of the subjects that I've ever brought up with anybody, the stand-ins bring the most confusion.
That's great.
And now, English
for us, it was the same way.
English, since I like that you're going to explain it, and English is not your first language, although you seem to have mastered the language pretty well. So just real quickly, Wolfgang, I don't want to go, and I don't know if your volume's a little low for me, but I can hear you fine. But I don't know if you're
let me check here. I'm on my laptop, and my speaker on my laptop is
it's fine. Yeah.
But can you hear me okay?
Yeah. It's absolutely fine. And I should add that, so Wolfgang, just to clear it up, you were there from day one?
Day one, yeah.
Okay.
I didn't do the pilot. I came in for the first episode.
Okay. So as I usually have with a guest, I want the guest to do the most talking, but sometimes I will reframe stuff because we get inside baseball sometimes, and people are like, "Wait, what are you trying to say?" So
you can translate my English to English.
English to English to performance English, yeah. So, just to be clear, just for people, the pilot is often shot randomly at a different studio with different people that end up doing the show. I was not at the pilot. A lot of the people who worked on the show were not at the pilot because it's a low budget thing. During pilot season, which is the spring and network TV, they're shooting pilots after pilots after pilots. So there might be 10 offers for a director, and they only choose 3 of the pilots to do, and all 3 of those don't get on the air. And they're like, oh, damn. And then they end up working on it later. So the fact that Wolfgang didn't do the pilot, which was shot at Universal Studios, really doesn't mean anything. You know, it's not like if they even had the stand-in. I assume they have a stand-in for a pilot as well, maybe even more.
They did,
yeah. So just for everybody, I just showed a picture before you joined. I showed a picture of everybody, all the stand-ins rather. So just in your words, Wolfgang, then we'll go back and hear how you got there. But what does a stand-in do?
Okay, I'm glad you asked. I don't know if you remember when we were working on the show, we had the Learning Channel came to our set, and they did this documentary on the making of a sitcom. And back then, they interviewed me as Ray Romano stand-in, and it basically went like this: well, the actors do their stuff, then they leave, and then we come in and do our stuff. And then when we're done with our stuff, we go back out, and the actors come back in and do their stuff. That was my interview. When I saw it, I thought, not a good interview. So I'm glad I get to explain it now.
Great.
The right way.
Yes.
All right. Every actor has a stand-in on both. On our show, it was a multi-camera show. We worked with 4 cameras. We shoot in front of a live audience every week. And so basically what they do is they set it up that there are 2 teams, the actors and us, the stand-ins, also known as the second team. Now, our job is at the first rehearsal, when the director works with the actors and they block the scene, meaning where they're gonna move and how they're gonna do things. We have to take notes and know exactly what our actor does. where they move, when they move at the dialogue, and we watch the rehearsal for 2 days. Then is camera blocking day. Then the 4 cameras come in, and we basically do on a step-by-step process what the actors did. Some directors wanted us to read, some directors didn't want us to read. It was just about where to go. And that's a step-by-step process. It takes a day. When we're done with the scene, the actors will come in and rehearse with the cameras, and then we block the next scene. And that's usually, blocking a show takes 1 day. And
so that's, Wolfgang, I'm just going to stop you for a second. Blocking means where do the actors stand?
Yes. And where do they move? And then when for instance we're blocking and the director changes something, then it's our job to tell the actors, this has been changed, you're doing this now. So and then basically when we're done, they rehearse with the cameras, and then when it's time for the show, our job is basically done. Now,
but you're still,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, you're still there for the filming though. You still stay to the end. Just
in case something goes wrong. And I think in the 9 years we worked on the show, there was only one night that something went wrong. I remember, I don't know what it was. It was a technical thing. And we all jumped back. They put the walls up so the audience couldn't see. And we came in and we fixed whatever it was. But that only happened once in 9 years.
Yeah. And usually if it's not Ray's bad acting, then it's going to be like a light, for example, a light burns out or something like that, where they go, it has to be something pretty catastrophic where they go, we need to really fix this. And when Wolfgang says they brought these things in, it's actually like a wall. It's a rolling wall. So they don't want the audience to see that. And usually when that happens, it's just they want to keep the element of surprise. That's when the wall is, because there's no secrets or mysteries or, there's everything that happens on stage you can pretty much see, unless they don't want to tip the joke, is what we say. So now, Wolfgang, a lot of people are confused because one time I posted, I post random pictures of you guys because I took a lot of pictures and you happened to be there. And so there was one time, and I can't remember if it was the PTNA episode, where you had to read, you had to act out Ray's part because Ray couldn't be there for some reason.
Right.
Okay. So
hold on. I just lost the audio. Hold on. Sorry.
There we go.
There we go. Okay, we're back.
Yeah. Something happened on my end. Speaking of mistakes.
Technical problems.
Yep. So, well, the mute button was clicked and I don't know how. So, sorry, what I said to Ray and Phil the first time we talked here, they both said, Tom, it's going to be embarrassing because I don't remember everything. And I said, nobody remembers everything. The audience that is watching you now has watched the show more times than you will ever watch in your lifetime, which is a good thing. So never question the knowledge of the viewers and what was broadcast. What you bring, what we all bring, is the unique perspective, because just to give an example, I, as a writer, would go down to the stage and watch run-throughs, etc. What Wolfgang knows that I never saw is most of the setup for the lighting and the rehearsal, and Patty Heaton and Ray, kidding around, and Brad Garrett kidding around. I was not privy to any of that. So in many ways, Wolfgang knows much, much more about what happens on stage during the week than me. It's just,
what's really great about what was great about this job and basically working on a sitcom. I mean, everybody takes their job very serious and it's hard work, but we laugh all the time. And that's the great thing about the job. It's laughter from morning till night.
Yeah. And so I think, because there are shows I've heard that are tension filled and not fun. Everybody loves Raymond. And Phil used to say it all the time. He's like, if you're not laughing, if you're making a sitcom where people are supposed to laugh at you and you're not laughing, something's trouble. And when we would be in the writer's room, there would be times when we would cry laughing for so long. And Phil would say, okay, you know, he'd point at us laughing and go, okay, now let's go back to the script, which is not as funny as what we're doing here, laughing to ourselves. But I'm glad to hear that you guys were laughing out there.
All the time. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. So then let's I want to get into the nitty gritty a little bit.
Okay.
We would see the first day of the week for everybody. It takes 5 days. Initially, it took 5 days to make a sitcom. It took us months to write the sitcom, but it takes 5 days to make the sitcom. And the beginning of that week is what's known as a production table read, where they're reading the script from beginning to end with the production people, not the cast at all, but the people who are the producers who go, okay, Ray comes in with an umbrella. The props department, what is the umbrella? What do you need the umbrella to look like? I don't care. You know, Phil will be like blue, red, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Okay, a car comes through the wall. A car comes through the wall, Phil. Hey, how are we going to do that? Well, that's your problem, but we need the car to come to the wall, and I need you to rebuild that wall in 15 minutes so the studio audience doesn't get bored, right? And so now, after that initial meeting, the production people go, how are we going to do that? Then, right after that is the table read with the actors. Now, Wolfgang, you're there for the table read?
Yes, we're there for the table read.
Okay. So for the table read, it's the only time during the week that you get to see the show from beginning to end in real time. So that is the time for the stand-ins to also, and anybody else, to capture the spirit of that episode. So yes, so it's almost like watching on TV, only they're just sitting and reading the script, and you are laughing very hard during the table reads. And and you know, oh, this, I can't wait to see this. I can't wait to see this, you know, finished project.
Right.
And then I'm not tearing up, Wolfgang. I'm just so and then comes the tedious work. And this is what separates when you're doing it professionally. It's okay. Now we're going back to, there's a rehearsal the first day. We, the writers, go back to the writer's room. Phil goes, okay, we have to fix this part. This part is less than this. What do you guys do that first day when it's time to rehearse?
This is when we sit down with the script that we have and watch the actors rehearse. And they change things, you know, sometimes the director says, you know, instead of going over here, let's go over here, or the actors want to do something. And we just sit and write and watch and take our notes so we know exactly where we have to be. Now, you guys are rewriting. So then, of course, we always get to rewrite script. So then we have to we always have to transfer our notes to the new script. So that always took a little bit of time. And in Ray's case, Ray had a lot of moves. So I remember I'm skipping ahead a little bit. On Friday night after the run through and the network run through, the stand-in stayed for lighting. And that's when they light every mark where the actors are standing. So we work with the director of photography. Now, after we were done, which was always pretty much late at night, the writers had rewritten the script for Monday morning. And I would go to the office on Friday night to get a script, a copy. Usually it was still warm from the printer. Most of the time I got a slice of pizza. And then I was able to transfer my notes during the weekend. So there was a lot of always a lot of putting the notes into the new script. So I know you guys rewrote all the time, every day, actually.
Yes.
After every run through.
Yes. And I think, just to be clear, some shows, they would rewrite the entire script, but that wasn't the case on Raymond. But that doesn't mean there aren't 10 small changes in one scene. And when you have a script, you get a little star. So when Wolfgang would come down and steal free pizza in our production office, which was on the other side of the studio lot, like a mile away or something, I don't know, maybe not that far. But
it was worth the walk.
Yeah, it's worth the walk. That's when you know you're not actually a Warner Brothers show. You're an outside show, as they call it, as opposed to Friends. Our production office, if they couldn't make the production office, which is where the writers were, further away from our, it was physically impossible to be further away on the movie lot from our production office. We were the bastard stepchild, or whatever you call it. So when Wolfgang would go down there, he would pick up the script. And what he can do is look on the right. And there's a revisions mode in Final Draft where we wrote our scripts that puts a star in there. So Wolfgang doesn't have to look at every single page. He can just go to the star and be like, okay, change there, nothing for Raymond. Change there, nothing for Raymond. But even if it's nothing for Raymond, it could be for Patty. So now I want to go back. I want to go back to that first day of rehearsal, because this is a lot of the questions I get. How much did the actors ad lib? Now, I'm just going to cut to the chase. The actors were phenomenal. By shoot night, there was really no ad libbing. However, the process that Wolfgang saw, which I didn't witness, is Ray and Patty and the whole cast having the ability to go, it feels like I want to do this, or it feels like I want to say, right? And so just talk about what you would witness where they're holding scripts and they're trying to figure stuff out, if you can remember.
And then I think, if I'm not mistaken, that's the job of the script supervisor. If they mention something, say, can we change this line or whatever, she would write it in. And then I think she would probably go to Phil, who was the creator of our show, and then, you know, he would know what the actors suggested or wanted. Yeah.
So there would be a conversation where maybe Patty would go, I feel like I want to say this or something like this, and then go, wait a minute, this, and then Ray they might have a dialogue, and then the script supervisor that Wolfgang is talking about, Ellen Halpern, in the last portion of the series, in most of the series, would sit there and go, okay, give me the exact line that you're going to say. And she makes a note of it and she writes down, because while we're rewriting, what can't happen, and this is very important, what can't happen is the next run through we have, there's 10 changes that we don't know about. Not because Phil was a control freak. It's just, you can't have 20 cooks in the kitchen. So, and also you sometimes don't know. Okay, but if you change that line, there's something called a callback 2 pages later that you are hurting that later joke. And you might go like, oh, I didn't think about it. So I just want to be clear, because it sounds like when we would talk about it, when Phil and Ray, because Ray was the first one who's like, there's zero ad libbing. There's zero ad libbing on the show. But that doesn't mean the actors aren't brilliant and funny and can come up with stuff. By shoot night, because Wolfgang, as you know, everything goes on the line that is said. So all of a sudden, if Ray makes up a line, the cameramen, everybody is sitting there going, I don't know when I move, because I'm supposed to move on. That's not what I said.
And the cameramen, they write down all the lines where they have to move.
Right. So so all of a sudden, all right, Wolfgang, let me just go look at some of these comments here.
Okay.
Okay. Yes.
I think most of the time Ray always said he wanted to do it with an Austrian accent. I think that was.
So I will post that picture, and then we're going to get how you got to Hollywood to begin with. I will post the picture. There was a point where Ray couldn't make it. And when I initially talked about stand-ins, a lot of people were like, how dare Ray? He got paid so much money and he had somebody doing the work for him. I can't believe it. I've lost all respect for him. And so I am very non-confrontational, because we're talking about a sitcom, but I have to say, well, I don't think you understand the function of the job has nothing to do with whether Ray is lazy or not. The function, if we didn't have Wolfgang and all the stand-ins, Ray would have to stand there all day and he wouldn't have time to rehearse. So Ray doesn't race back to his room and get a massage and maybe get some drinks. Ray doesn't drink, but it's Ray studying the lines.
Well, plus he was one of the writers too, and also wasn't he a producer where he would also go to the editing room, and so he had control. He had 3 jobs basically.
It was an incredible workload, and I guess for certain people, they sit there and go, it's hard to say, Wolfgang, what I'm about to say, but when you see a professional baseball player who earns, $20 million, and you're like, for what? For hitting a little ball? Well, that baseball player brings people into the stadium, right? And with Ray, the show was a hit and it sold a lot of advertising for the network. But having said that, where I always think, well, there's some coal miner going, I'm making $62,000 a year digging underground. I'll take his responsibility. Having said all that, qualifiers, Ray worked really hard. editing, producing, writing, all that stuff.
Definitely.
So if you didn't have a stand, he would, you know, he was almost ready to collapse as it was. So let's go back, Wolfgang, how you wound up in Hollywood to begin with.
Well, I was living in Vienna. I was a musician. I was a freelance violinist, and I performed here a lot. And I got my degree in music. And then, like any great violinist or musicians, when you get your degree, you want to do something completely different with your life. And I had a burnout basically on the violin. So I decided I was going to go to Los Angeles and study acting. And I told myself, I'll give myself 2-3 years, take some lessons. I had some very good teachers, studied about 3 years, but I did extra work in the beginning, atmosphere work, which led to stand-in work. And I had an assistant director call me and asked me if I wanted to be a stand-in on a sitcom. It was a show called Dr. Doctor that was, I think, 5 years before Raymond started. And I said, I would love to. What do I have to do? I had no clue what a stand-in does. So I learned. And because of that, it kind of kept me in Los Angeles because I got to work. I worked, all in all, I worked about, I think it was about 21, 23 years as a stand-in. And that kept me in LA. So
yeah. Well, Wolfgang, I have an idea. Is you're on a laptop. Can you move your thing towards you a little bit just to frame it a little bit more and get closer? Yes. There we go. Now yeah. And if you sit closer, yes. Now we're in the land of movies. Yeah. Okay.
Is that better? I know the light was a little bright.
Oh yes. You're top lit.
I'm like a ghost.
Yeah. You've hit the trifecta of bad lighting.
Maybe I can move it forward. Oh, there we go. I can move it forward a little bit.
Yes. That's even better, Wolfie. Yeah.
I think we need a DP.
You can even put your computer on a book, and it elevates it, and then it gets rid of everything you've suffered in Hollywood goes away when you elevate the camera. So Wolfie, can I add a little bit more context? And I don't know if and you may have deliberately left it out because you don't want to, but your father was really a very large figure in music in Vienna.
Yeah, okay. He had a wonderful career as a symphony conductor and a choral director. And he was also the director of the Music Conservatory here in Vienna for 10 years. But my parents grew up, they lived in America for 29 years. So that's why I grew up in America. That's why I have such a weird accent.
Because where did you grow up?
Yeah, I lived in Minnesota and Colorado. Go figure.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then when I graduated from high school, I moved back to Vienna. So, and my parents lived 29 years in America, and then they came back but my dad started his career he was a member of the Vienna Boys Choir when he was a kid.
Okay.
And then he became the youngest conductor of the Vienna Boys Choir at the age of 19. And on their second American tour, he had a job offer to be head of the music department at St. John's University in Minnesota. And he took the job, and he was 25 years old at the time, where the students were 18, 19, 20, 21. Very young. And my mom was a very successful concert pianist, and did a lot of solo performances and chamber music, and she was a teacher also for many years. So I come from a total music family.
Right.
So my brother's a musician. He's actually a Grammy-winning engineer and composer, writer, drummer, keyboard player, very talented.
Yeah. So just framing that story a little bit, when you were burnt out, because you were surrounded by it. Your whole life was music. Everybody in your family was music. So
also at a very young age too.
Exactly. Right. So you're almost like an Olympic athlete who's like, I really don't want to swim anymore.
I had enough.
I've had enough water in my ears. So then So people are asking who else. So just for everybody, this is Tom Caltabiano. I was a writer on Everyone's Raymond for all 9 years. I'm talking to Wolfgang Track, who was Raymond's stand-in from the very beginning to the very end. And some people are asking, who else have you stood in for?
I stood in for, let me think, that's a good question. A lot of people, but Dylan McDermott.
Okay.
I stood in for him in a feature film. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. Jason Beige. He's now the actor who's the lead actor on Chicago PD. I stood in for him. Jason Bateman.
Jason Bateman. Okay.
Yeah, there's so many.
So
I can't name them all.
But people love this, Wolfgang. I love this. I did not know this. So I've talked a little bit, and the people who have been fans, and I started doing this right when COVID started, the difference between multi-camera and single camera. So I'm just going to frame it quickly. Multi-camera is 4 cameras in front of a live audience, and you shoot on show night, and you're out in like 4 hours, and you see the show from beginning to end. Single camera shot like a movie, which means it might be shot completely out of order, and there is 0 audience, and so you might be shooting the very last love scene where the lead is kissing the woman the first day. And then the second day you're shooting a car chase so it's all over the map. But the significance is the hours for single camera are exceptionally long.
Incredibly long. And the second team, all we're there for on a feature film or a single camera show is for lighting. That's all we do. There's no having to learn the dialogue. There's no having to really move. It's all about lighting.
Yeah. And that's less fun for you than knowing the dialogue and
yes.
Okay. So you're
I always said it was interesting when we finished the show 9 years later, we all as a gift got a beautiful ring. And when I got the ring, I think the ring was from Ray and from Phil. When I got the ring, I thought to myself, I just graduated from the best acting school in LA.
Yes.
Okay, and I also say anybody that wants to pursue acting, if you get the opportunity to do something like that, it's such an amazing learning experience.
Yeah. And I think especially specifically, and even though I have a lot of footage, but I have to digitize it, to watch Phil give notes, to watch Phil Rosenthal give notes to the actors on scenes was exceptionally educational for acting. Because you would watch a scene that wouldn't necessarily get as many laughs as it should. And then Phil would sit there and for 20 minutes kind of reblock and go over and do it. And all of a sudden that scene, which on other shows would get rewritten because they'd go, well, it's not getting the laughs we want, let's go rewrite it. That scene would all of a sudden come alive.
Yeah.
And so
it's amazing. It's and the times where I jumped in and I read with the actors during rehearsal, every single time was such an amazing learning experience. Basically, you learn from your mistakes. Basically.
Yeah. Well, I think going back, there was a question here from Annabelle. There's so many good episodes. So there's too many for 9 years to recount, but are there any that you specifically remember just being like, I love the model episode, for Raymond, any of those episodes that come to mind?
Oh boy, there were so many. And you know what's interesting? When I see a rerun, right away I know what the episode is. It's really weird. I can't tell you, any of the episodes basically, but the second I see a little bit of it, I know exactly what happens in that episode.
Oh,
with me, it's usually if something funny happened where I remember. Like when you said the car going through the wall, I mean, that was epic.
Yeah.
And I remember, there was, the wall was all over the place and and we were camera blocking. And I remember the director yelling at me going, Wolfgang, are you on your mark? And I looked down and all the marks were covered up. We get little marks for where the actors are, where they have to go. And it was all covered up with all the
debris.
And I just said, I have no idea.
So just going back for people this is a little detail. Every actor had a different color tape.
Yes.
So they would during blocking, etc. They would sit there and Steve Messias, I think usually, right? He would come in, and Steve, who's been a guest here, who looks like Fonzie for everybody who's trying to remember, you would put a colored piece of tape. So that's your mark at this point. And that's why, as we talk about it, it's kind of like a ballet when the show is going on.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's this perfect fluid thing that's going, but very precise. So in a ballet, you're not randomly hitting marks. You are really hitting your thing, but it looks like a beautiful, thing that comes together. And that's kind of what happens on show night.
But also what is really great is right before the show, before the taping, they take all the tapes off. So the actors already know 100% where they have to go.
Yeah.
So that's another thing they have to kind of memorize and learn besides the dialogue.
Yes. And you'll hear, so I posted a picture of a quad split. Annabelle, that was the question of the quad split. I posted a picture of quad split from Cruising with Marie. And one of the things, what Wolfgang's saying is they pull the tape up. So when they're rehearsing, they can look down and go, okay, I'm on my mark. You can't in front of 200 people when you're in the moment. But in between takes, there's a chance, or even if there's something slow within the scene, the director might go, Raymond, cheat to your left, just cheat to your left a little bit, because they're looking at the monitor. And Ray has to, cheating to the left means he just moves to the left, not too much, And so he cheats to the left because what Ray can't see is his shoulder is blocking Patty Heaton's face, or a bit of it. So the marks that Wolfgang is talking about, when it's time for showtime, they have to remember their dialogue and their marks. So one of the questions from Bobby here in, not here, but in Hawaii, but at least here in the United States where you are not, Wolfgang is in Vienna, Austria. Did you remember all of your lines? Were you ever off book, as the term is, or for the most part you could use it?
We never had to memorize the lines. We just had to know them, but we never had to memorize it.
Right.
Just basically reading it.
So how many, let me ask you this, Wolfgang, just so people can look for, I'm assuming you were in a couple of episodes in the background or somewhere, or were you never?
In the beginning, when we were at
Nemo's.
What's the pizza place called? Nemo's,
Yeah.
I was a waiter in Nemo's. I was also, when we had a funeral scene.
I Wish I Were Gus.
What episode was it?
I Wish I Were Gus was like episode 3, season 1.
And that was with who was our guest actress?
Stapleton? Jean Stapleton.
Jean Stapleton. I did background work on that. I was at the funeral. So in the beginning, all the stand-ins, we were to be in the background.
That's the function of a low budget early non-hit.
Later we didn't have to do it anymore.
Get in that scene. Get in that scene. So then, Wolfgang, do you remember what was the worst part of the, like what because like here, I'll give you an example. When we did the rewrites on like a Thursday afternoon at 4 p.m. and you've been living with that script for 4 days, and I would stay back and I would get in trouble for it, but I would stay back and take pictures of Phil's notes, Phil giving notes, right? I would take pictures of that. But then you would go in the writer's room, and it's like that time when you're a little bit tired and it's 4:30, and you're like going, okay, page 3. It feels like Deborah needs something different. And you're like, okay, here we go. That was always like a little bit of a push. And for you as a stand-in, what were there days or times that were not as enjoyable?
I think only, not work-wise, but only if you're really tired. Just to keep going and to keep the concentration going. But from the work itself, never. It was always
fun. Yeah. And then let's get more into the nitty-gritty, because I have a couple pictures from Jim Dunn actually, where the lighting crew is up there. I don't know if you guys are in frame or not, any of the stand-ins, but when they would say, okay, Wolfgang, stand there. Okay, he's got a bad shadow on his face. Now, do they have you leave and then come back when they adjust the light? Or are you standing there as
we stand? We're there until they're done with the lighting.
Okay.
Sometimes that could sometimes be, a little longer. But they were actually pretty quick, I have to say.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, the more episodes we did, it was a fine, what is the saying? A fine-tuned car.
A well-oiled machine.
Yeah, thank you.
A well-oiled machine. Yeah. So we have a question from Mona. Did your father ever conduct for Placido Domingo? I'm filling in the blank.
For Placido Domingo, not with Domingo, but he did conduct Carreras, which was the other big one.
Yes.
And there was Pavarotti and Domingo and Carreras. My dad conducted Carreras, but never Domingo.
Okay.
He knew Domingo, I think, personally.
Yeah, Mona is a fan of Placido. Okay. So sorry, Wolfgang, going back to the beginning, when you get a chance to be a stand-in on this unknown show, because Ray was unknown, right? Was there a couple of other choices, or you were just like, oh?
Well, you know, that was interesting because we always have to go in for an interview for these stand-in jobs.
Right.
And I interviewed for Everybody Loves Raymond. And like you said, nobody knew. Well, a lot of people didn't know who Ray Romano was at the time.
Nobody.
And I also came in for an interview for Suddenly Susan. That was at Brooke Shields.
Yeah.
And that had the buzz because of Brooke Shields. So I actually wanted Suddenly Susan. And Everybody Loves Raymond called back first and said, you have the job if you want it. And I took it because I thought if Suddenly Susan doesn't call me, then I don't have a job.
Right.
So I took Everybody Loves Raymond. The next day, Suddenly Susan called me and said, you've got the job if you want it. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I already took a job. And I was like, but then, you know, it was a blessing.
Yes. Because suddenly, yes. Well, you must have been kicking yourself because I remember the buzz on Suddenly Susan, and the buzz on Everybody Loves Raymond was zero.
Exactly.
Because also Suddenly Susan, I think, was on NBC, and and Everybody Loves Raymond was on CBS, and CBS had 0 hits. It was the third-ranked network with a unknown lead star on Friday nights, and so, but you would have been able to spend more time with Brooke Shields had you taken the.
You know what? I don't think I would have had the experience like I did on Raymond. You know, in the sense that how everything was run, and also the fact that I got to read a lot, and I got to, you know, I can remember the first time I jumped in and I was reading with Peter Boyle, and I was concentrated and in the moment. And then Peter Boyle had a little bit of a monologue. And during his monologue, I started thinking, oh my God, I'm reading with Peter Boyle, the young Frankenstein taxi driver. I got all nervous and it started flubbing the lines and but the experiences, looking back at it, they were so wonderful. I got to tell you one cute story. At the end of it all, when we were coming to the end of the 9th season, we all knew it's coming to an end. I was standing with Patricia Heaton, Patty, at the craft service. And we had this really nice talk. And I said to Patty, I want to thank you. And she said, for what? And I said, from the very beginning, when I jumped in and read with you guys, I said, you never made me feel like I was beneath you. All of you. You never made me feel like I was beneath you. And then Patty looked at me and said, see, we are good actors.
Oh, see that? Patty being funny. That's
how it was. You know, I mean, it was even in serious moments, there was always somehow humor. I mean, after 9/11 had happened, and then we got back to work, and then we had that high terror alert for all the studios, Warner Brothers, Paramount. And I can remember we were standing in the kitchen, and there's a little television set in the kitchen. And we're all watching the news because they were talking about the high terror alert for the studios. And Ray was in the room reading a paper. He wasn't paying attention to the TV. And then at one point, he looks up and he said, what is this? And they said, they're talking about, you know, they want to bomb some of the studios maybe. And Ray said, well, you know, they're going to bomb our show first. And we all said, why? And he said, because everybody loves me. Always humor.
Yes.
You know, made everybody laugh.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I totally forgot about that. And for people watching, Warner Brothers Studios has 5,000 people on it. And when 9/11 happened, the cast was in New York. I had a ticket for September 12th to fly in because we were doing a DVD release party. So the cast comes back eventually and we start filming again, like Wolfgang said. But the studio lot, which had been kind of, and I'm not saying it was a good thing, but it was the nature of the times. You could just drive on. Wolfgang could bring someone. Hi, this is my friend from, wherever. Oh, hi, Wolf. Yeah, come on on. And then it instantly went to big gates with steel girders. When you would pull in, they would make you pop your trunk every time. They would put mirrors under your car to check for bombs. It all of a sudden became not, it became a lockdown situation, a very serious, close to home situation. And I think it's probably, it's the security was too lax before. You could just go on the lot, etc. So I do think, Wolfgang, you have to have, and just to share, and you don't have to say how good Everose Raymond was, but on any other show that you were on, and you might have been on great shows also. I know, I talked to Amy Jannon and she said The New Adventures of Old Christine was a fun time,
I worked on that one too, and that was a great show too. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So had you had any, you don't have to name names, but did you have any bad experiences where there was tension and it was just not fun?
No. I was very, very lucky, I think.
Yeah.
I think I was very lucky. And, the thing is, on our show, also, I worked on The New Adventures of Old Christine, same kind of atmosphere. We had, I have to think now. I'm so bad with names when I have to come up with them. I'm thinking of the director now. Not Jim Burrows, but the other guy. He directed all the episodes on Old Christine. Oh, why can't I?
Okay, not Gary Halverson, not someone who did our show.
No, he never directed our show.
Okay, not Andy Ackerman.
Thank you, Andy Ackerman.
He did a lot of Seinfeld.
Watching, I'm sorry that I'm getting old. Andy Ackerman. I truly believe, and we saw that because on Everybody Loves Raymond, we had different directors also. I always say, what, the only thing that trickles down from on top is human behavior. And you have a laid back, somebody that knows exactly what they're doing, director who's fun, and that's the whole set. And it's never been really a negative thing between actors. I never saw any kind of negative. It was always professional, very professional. And also in our case, I mean, everybody was very family oriented. Everybody had kids. Everybody was happily married.
Yeah,
it was a great show to work on.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, after 9 years, we all really felt like family. I mean, it was always that way. But when you bump into somebody, hugs, and it's going back to that time, which was very positive.
Yeah. And I think, Wolfgang, off of that, it was such a, we would say this, when you're on a hit show, everything is going well. And there's only good memories. Yes, there were some people that left or whatever, but for the most part, it was just a magical time in your life. And when you look at the episode, for the people, I just posted pictures of Pat's Secret, and
that's the one I like. I like that one.
I hope you like them all, Wolfgang. But
I like them all.
Yeah, but in all seriousness, Pat's Secret is one of the funniest shows of the entire series. And on a lot of shows, you go, oh, the last 2 seasons weren't that good, or the last and it was such what you said before, a well-oiled machine that you felt like any idea that got brought into the writer's room and went through the filter of Phil and Ray and the other writers was going to be comedy gold, and as soon as that goes away, it like that mantle slips away, and then it's no longer, people are still doing good work, but that little coming together in time of the perfect cast, perfect writers, and period is such a magical, tinged with a little sparkle of specialness that is hard to define,
Yes.
So even though everyone's still working hard and Ray has done a ton of projects and Patty, Brad, everybody, and Phil has his show, of course, Somebody Feed Phil. I don't think he's been to Austria yet.
He needs to come to Vienna and get a Wiener Schnitzel. Tell him that next time you talk to him.
By the way, I do usually have a snack. I couldn't find a Linzer tort, but I found something that looks maybe almost like it, but it's not.
Like a Kit Kat.
It's actually a Tim Tam. A Tim Tam.
Wow.
Yeah. From Australia, but Linzer tort, for those of you that haven't had it, is a very famous. Is it Viennese, especially? Yeah,
Viennese, and then we have the famous Sachertorte, which is the famous German cake.
Oh yeah, the Sachertorte.
Yeah,
from the Zacher Hotel.
The food here is so good. I mean, I'm actually surprised I don't weigh 300 pounds.
So, Wolfgang, is it true that like the first coffee shops were Vienna?
I don't know. That's a good question.
The last time I was there, I remember being in some, and there were a few musicians from there. I forget their names, but they were kind of famous who liked to hang out. You may even know them. Okay, wait. Going back to the show, Wolfgang. Annabelle wants to know: did you have to run and pull the short hose for the tissues episode before Raymond did? Did you have to do that action?
The hose.
Yes. All right, we're gonna go back, everybody.
Is that the one where he had the hose in the living room?
Yes.
We did it, but without the water.
Yeah, without the water, but you still had to. Yeah. So
there are many times that even the physical comedy that I would have to do too sometimes.
Well, what about, because this was a really thing that Ken Levine kind of choreographed this, where Patty, Deborah has a splinter and Ray wrestles with her and pulls her around and pulls her, across the floor. I don't remember if you had to do those same actions.
I think we did the same actions. Or remember the suitcase episode with the stairs?
Yep.
Where I think Ray was holding Patty's legs.
Oh yeah, the audience is going, of course we know this. Yes, you don't have to explain it to us.
Okay. Yeah. We did that. We did all that kind of stuff.
And so when we say this, by the way, Sarah Hale is the stand-in for was the stand-in for Patty, and she was the stand-in from the beginning, also to the end. And I will say, of all the stand-ins, when people see her, they go, okay, I can see that, because people are confused. You only have to be approximately the same height and complexion. So if you were 5'5" and bald, you would not be Ray Romano's stand-in.
Right.
But you're about his height, and of course, it was always enjoyable. So here, for those of you watching, there is Sarah and Wolfgang and Joe Durenberger and Maya. Was Maya from day one?
Maya was also from day one. I think actually, I think Maya and myself. What's the correct English? I think we were the only two that were the original. Sarah came a little later. She came in after like 2 or 3 episodes. And I think we had other stand-ins too. Then we had Susie, of course, Susie Rosito, who unfortunately passed away already. And she stood in for the kids.
Right.
But we had another stand-in before Susie came in, and Susie was with us then, I think 7 years or something like that.
Yeah. So you would have to wrestle with Sarah for the baggage episode, for example.
Yeah, we did all the physical stuff too. Yeah.
And then here's something that comes up a lot, Wolfgang, and we're gonna run out of time. But the turkey dropping, for example, where Patty drops the turkey, right?
Fantastic.
Yes. Or Patty being thrown up. I like that Patty's getting abused. Patty getting thrown against the refrigerator by Raymond. So a lot of people, and I have to dispel the rumors that it makes sense. People are like, oh, I think Patty dropped it in rehearsal and then they kept it. But it was all planned. It was in the script. Patty had to execute it perfectly. Yeah. That's the thing that
we made it look like it wasn't planned, which was perfect.
Right. That's acting. Yeah. And so the throwing against the refrigerator. I just found a picture that I have to scan of Patty holding a script being thrown up against the refrigerator in rehearsal, with people watching. But do you remember Wolfgang, did you, when the table read would happen and you would see it for the first time, had you already read the script or you were just reading it?
No, we heard it for the first time when they read it for the first time.
Okay, great. So you were in many ways enjoying a brand new show. All the jokes are new.
Right. There was one time where I did the table read for the network and for everybody because Ray was out of town, and they gave me the script in advance so I would be prepared.
Oh, okay.
That was the only time.
So just for people watching, Wolfgang would have a heavy, and still does, Austrian accent. For those of you that need to know who else has it, Arnold Schwarzenegger has a similar accent, being from Austria. So you would hear Ray, who's supposed to be an Italian guy from Queens, and in real life is an Italian guy from Queens, being read with a heavy Austrian accent.
That's right.
Yes. And so just that in itself, because the table read is actually a very important time during the week, because Phil, for example, all the writers would keep track, but Phil would have to figure out what's working, what's not working. So if Wolfgang is reading the table read, you have to factor in a couple of points for Austrian accent and skilled violinist reading Ray's part. So, and that's why the pictures that I don't remember you doing, but I found it, of you during the rehearsal of PT&A, where Patty comes down dressed like a hooker. I'm like, wow, Wolfgang read that part. I don't remember. And Ray missed almost nothing during the 9 years. He never took time off. He would have to be at a doctor's appointment or something would have to happen. And so that was Wolfgang's chance to shine and perhaps take over as the lead of Everybody Loves Raymond.
There was one time I remember we had a rehearsal and I was very tired and I didn't take very well notes. I didn't take good notes. I wasn't really paying attention. I was just a little bit. It was one of those days. Like, okay. And right before the run through, the assistant director comes up to me and says, "Listen, Ray's not feeling well. You have to do the run through." And I'm like, I wasn't even paying attention that much. So the first scene, I had to walk into the living room out the door. I was so nervous because I wasn't really paying attention. And I thought, okay, this is like in season 7, but I thought, okay, today they're going to find out that I have no idea what I'm doing.
Too late to fire you.
And you know what? The fear was so big that I knew, okay, this is it. This is it. It was okay. It worked.
Well, to be honest, not because of your acting ability, you're just not expecting, you're because Ray has such unique, specific delivery, so
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So for blocking. And Wolfie, before we say goodbye, were there any other memories that you have, poignant memories with Doris or Peter and during the 9 years?
They were all great. A couple of great memories with Peter. I read once at rehearsal, and at lunchtime I was walking to the craft service. To the what is it called? Where we always ate lunch.
Yeah, the commissary.
Yeah, I was walking to the commissary, and Peter Ball was coming toward me, and we said hi when we passed, and then he said, "Wolfgang," and I stopped and I said, "Yeah," and he goes, "I just want you to know I appreciate that you give 100% every time you read." And I said, "Thank you so much, Peter." Then I was walking on, and he said, he didn't say I did a good job, but he just he didn't say you did a great job. I appreciate that you give 100%. And I just thought it's perfect. It's just
at least you tried.
And it was interesting once. My parents, I don't know how much time we have left, but my parents were at a taping of a show, and Everybody Loves Raymond ran here in Austria and later in German. And my parents watched the show, and it was the show that they sat in the audience, so they knew. And I did background work. I think it was the funeral episode. And there was a moment where I was standing right behind Peter, and my dad took a camera and took a picture from the television, and it turned out fantastic. It was Peter and me. I looked like his bodyguard. He blew it up to an 8x10, sent it to me to Los Angeles, and I told Peter about it. And I said, "Peter, if I bring it in, would you sign it for me?" And he said, "Of course." So I brought it in the next day, and after rehearsal, he invited me into his dressing room, and we sat for about 15, 20 minutes. He wanted to talk about music because he was a big music person, big music fan. I just wanted to talk about acting because it was that moment. But he signed it, and then on the way out, I said to Peter, if you can give me one advice as an actor, what would it be? And he just said, don't ever marry an actress.
Oh, wow. That's, by the way, that's what, I got the same advice from Lisa Miller Katz, by the way, our casting director. She said, Tom, don't ever marry an actress. And I was like, okay, I wasn't planning on it, but noted, duly noted. You know, that's hysterical.
Yeah, there were moments like that with Doris was always sweet.
I think
always good people and great people and helpful and.
Yeah, and I think what you said before, the handing down of the attitude from Ray and Phil, family oriented, super nice. Nobody could be a prima donna. Everybody, it just wasn't tolerated, and so nobody could act that way. And so it just became this super familial thing, and I think just an anomaly for a lot of people to have that for all 9 years. And so I don't know if you when it struck you, two things. Do you remember when you realized the show was a hit? And I can tell you, like for me, when we went into syndication, all of a sudden Ray was getting, Ray and I obviously knew each other before Raymond. So I knew him as not famous guy. He was just my friend who did stand up. And then all of a sudden he became, everybody saw it. And that was like season 4 or 5.
Yeah.
He was on the air, but all of a sudden it was like, oh, wow. Like people are pointing. And do you remember any turning point or any time when?
You know what? I think it was when I was watching the Emmys. And they were all there. That's like, okay, we got a good show.
Well, it's funny because we were never nominated the first 3 years, really.
Yeah,
so we
thought, So it was the 4th year or 5th year or something, right?
4th. I think it was the 4th year. Patty won the first Emmy, and we were like, "Oh, right, she won the." The show is even recognized because honestly, by season 3, it was like, "Well, we'll never win an Emmy for this show, but we think we're doing good stuff." You know what I mean? It was odd. Yeah. But the Emmys are a very specific animal, But and then for you, Wolfgang, like for me, the end of the show, there was a point where I was sitting with Patty on the couch, the live audience, the final episode, and we're just sitting there talking, and all of a sudden, a feeling of sadness that was just overwhelming hit me out of the blue, because I just have my cameras and I'm taking pictures. I've seen the rehearsal, 20 times. There was nothing specific, but it was just like, oh. I'll never sit here and have this casual passing conversation. And for you, did you have any final?
Very emotional toward the end. I don't know. Somebody told me, and I can't remember who it was, just said toward the end, just enjoy every minute because it's never going to be as good as this.
Yeah.
And that person, whoever it was, I can't remember who said it to me, but he was right.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. On that note, Wolf, by the way, we can visit again, Wolfgang. Maybe if we have, I don't know, with some people, like I just saw Steve came over and we did a live. I ran into Steve at a Muppets shoot, 5 years ago. And then I saw him on the lot 5 years ago. I think I saw you. I was getting my hair cut last time.
I just had a sandwich and you're getting a haircut.
And I was getting a haircut. I was like, Wolfie. And so, but we can visit again. Do you have any plans to come back to LA or nothing immediate?
Nothing immediately, but I'm definitely, my brother lives in LA, and so I'll come visit him. He'll come visit me. But yeah, definitely, LA. There's a big. My heart is still there too. So
yeah. And by the way, Wolfgang, I do have video footage of your father on the stage. And I don't know if I've ever shown it.
That is fantastic.
Yeah. So I will dig that up. I will post it. I'll send you a link. But it's your father. It's you and your father and mother on stage. And I think it might have been the wallpaper episode when the couch was missing. But I will find it. And of course, I think occasionally you'll get a random photo from me, right? Of you.
I love that. I love that. And I appreciate it too.
Yeah. Well, I still have about 25,000 more photos to scan. So there'll be more photos headed your way.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yes,
that's really amazing.
Yes, it's a lot of photos. And by the way, sorry, Wolfie, what we've avoided so far? I have, because nothing alienates an audience more than watching people speak a foreign language. Okay? So, ich kann Deutsch sprechen.
Oh, wir können auf Deutsch sprechen.
Yes. So, wir können das wieder mal auf Deutsch.
Das Ganze noch einmal auf Deutsch.
Yes. So, everybody, I know it's annoying when you hear other people. I just said, okay, we're going to have to do this entire interview again in German, which we will not. We will say goodbye. Wolfie, always a pleasure.
It was, yeah, I enjoyed this so much, and it's so great to see you again.
And there will be more, you as well. There will be more random questions that come up, and I will forward them to you, and then you can sit there and go, okay.
I'll be glad to answer them.
Yes. Now let me write some details. So
if I remember it.
Yes. All right. Now, Wolfie, I will see you. I'm going to try and convince Phil to shoot in Austria. Somebody feed
do
Phil.
that.
Yeah.
Because you gotta have a Wiener Schnitzel.
Yeah. Well, you know, by the way, Wolfie, I don't know if you know this, but Phil's father, Max, his favorite food in the entire world is Wiener Schnitzel. So
he's got to come to Vienna.
Yes, of course. Everywhere Phil went with his father, forget even the TV show, he would go and he tells a story. And I think it was a seafood restaurant in Italy, and it's everything seafood. And his father said, "Do you have any Wiener Schnitzel?" And the guy said, and Phil's like, "Oh my God, Dad, you got to let it go." And then Phil said, the chef was like, "I think we can make it." And so he made Phil's father, yes, Wiener Schnitzel. All right. I will recommend that. All right. See you soon,
It
Wolfie.
was so great, Tom. Great to see you.
Tschüss, as we say.
Yeah.